A great Sunday, you all. I hope that you have the best day ever. Today, I'm coming from the book of Luke, chapter 7, verses. Let's see, let's get these verses right. I read 16 through 33, but I'm coming from 7:41 through 44, 41 to the end to 50. 41 through 50, but my key verses is 41 through 44. There are some Pharisees, or there's a group of people who are shocked to see a lady wash Jesus's feet with some nice oil in her hair. And Jesus says to, I guess the disciples were around, Jesus said to Simon, if there was because Jesus was teaching his followers, Jesus said to Simon, if there was a creditor who had two debtors, so in other words, somebody who had lent somebody something, and the debtors, they owed that creditor something, who would be forgiven more? Well, not who would be forgiven more, who would love the creditor more if that creditor forgave their debts. So it says one debtor was forgiven 500 denarii. Another debtor was forgiven 50 denarii. Now, if you equate that to American money, $500, $50. But if you equate that to this time frame, I have to look it up. But when I did do a Google search, denarii was a day's wages. How much money somebody makes in a day. And it also says a denarii, and this is just from a blank Google search, could be wrong. Stick with me here. That denarii was the equivalent of a $50 bill. So imagine 500 times 50, or a $50 bill for that one who had just owed 50. But while people are questioning why Jesus has forgiven this, what's described as a sinful woman, because she washed his hair and washed his feet with her and wiped it off with her hair and kissed his feet. Jesus is saying the woman's forgiven. He forgave her for all her sins that she committed. And one thing I want to say to you all before I get back to this creditor and debtor, when you know God has forgiven you for some things, and how do you know if you're forgiven? Because you're still alive. How do you know you're forgiven? Because there's still greater use of you no matter where you at, whether you're confined to a jail cell or not. How do you know you're forgiven? When God still makes a way to give him praise and to tell people about the goodness of him, and to change your mind on the inside so that it can be shown more on the outside. When you could have been in prison, when you could have been dead, when you could have been out of your children's lives, but you're in your children's lives, when you could have not had no heart, no house, no car, no nothing. And even if you ever went, or if right now you're without a house, no car, maybe you still got joy, maybe you still got the ability to get, maybe you still have some wittiness, some way, fashion or form. There's still something living, residing in you that shows you that you still can get more. Everything that was lost, any possession that was lost, you can still get it back. These are confirmations and affirmations of how you know, confirmations for sure, of how you know God forgives you. God can forgive you. And that's where it talks about in Luke chapter 7, verses 41 through 44. Jesus had already experienced this lady, her sincerity in washing his feet, drying it off with her hair, kissing his feet. And they already knew the reputation of Jesus was he could heal, he could forgive. And to me, Jesus is God. Jesus is the physical form of God himself. That's me. A lot of people say, well, Christianity is a fairy tale, Jesus is a fairy tale. Well, you can't prove Jesus was not real, and I can't either. But I can prove all the things that I've done in life and how I'm still here, how I'm still a free man, how I still got mobility, dexterity, how I'm a great father, how I've been sober from alcohol for 8 years, how I haven't touched any smoke in more than 8 years. So, it's just a lot of things I can be grateful for. But back to this creditor and these debt collectors. And this parable that Jesus repeats to whatever crowd that's around him at the time in Luke 7, I know he talked to Simon, because it says here in the word that he's talking to Simon. He says, and I'm just going to read it for y'all. In Luke 7:41, there was a certain creditor who had two debtors, and one owed 500 denarii and the other 50. And when they had nothing with which to repay, he freely forgave them both. Tell me, therefore, this is him speaking to Simon, which of them will love him more? Simon answered and said, I suppose the one he forgave more. And he said to him, this is him speaking back to Simon, you have rightly judged. Then he turned to the woman and said to Simon, do you see the woman I entered? Do you see this woman? I entered your house. You gave me no water for my feet, but she has washed my feet with her tears and wiped them with the hair of her head. You gave me no kiss, but this woman has not ceased to kiss my feet since the time I came in. You did not anoint my head with oil, but this woman has anointed my feet with fragrant oil. Therefore, I say to you, her sins, which are many, are forgiven, for she has loved much. But to whom little is forgiven, the same loves little. So the more, just on that alone, let's think logically. The more that God has forgiven with you, the more you probably gonna love God. The more God has forgiven in your life, the more you probably gonna testify about God. And that's why when you see somebody always talking about God, I'm one of them who get the I can't help it. I know where I was at in 2016. I know where I was at in 2010. I know where I was at mentally in 2016. I know where I was at mentally and physically. And I know where I'm at right now. I know God is real. There's some things that I haven't told anybody that I just prayed on myself and they were brought into fruition. And what do you do when you praying on something to a God that you're looking at? You don't know what God look like? Look at yourself, because it's a variation of God in all of us. It's a variation of God in all of us. But if you don't believe God is real, pray for some things and prepare for these things. And if these things align up to the will that God has for your life, they will come to fruition only if you're preparing for them. Prepared through fasting, giving up some things, prepared through, speech, prepared through testifying, prepare every day. Center your life around what God would have you to do. Not what God would have the church to tell you to do. Not what God would have from Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube to tell you to do. What has God convicted in your heart to do, to walk upright, to turn, to change about you so that you can live better, hear better, discern better? I wish y'all a great Sunday. Luke 7:41 through 44. You can go on to 50 if you want. This woman had been forgiven in Luke 7. Jesus gives a parable. He gives a story, a little short story with meaning. The creditor forgave two debtors. The one who he forgave more, it is saying loved him more or would love more. It's expected. And when God has brought you far in life, of course you're going to love God more than what you used to. It was God that moved on some people. That spirit moved on some people. Some people's heart to forgive. That spirit moved on you for you to change. The one who was forgiven more loved them more. I wish y'all a wonderful Sunday. Keep it there.